All right, the audio messed up, so we're going to try this again. Narrating over this roll, focusing on Anaconda chokes with Chris, right? Leading up to this instructional, coming out, trying to keep the foot off the floor right there. I'm going to run it back in just a second, making up to the leg drag here as he starts to wrestle in, really leaning against that elbow to open that up for the Anaconda, right? So on this early if you watch the right hand here on this early sweep, I've been watching. I saw Nick Ortiz doing this a couple years ago, just putting the palm like underneath the heel. Anytime you're kind of playing reverse De La Hiva style games, or when anybody's leading strong with that foot, and just trying to keep that foot elevated off of the floor, it's really gonna really help with those kind of sweeps. Coming up to the leg drag here can be kind of a good option if you really want to insist on taking the back. Obviously, you can keep stapling that bottom leg with the knee moving towards the wall, or you can kind of open out towards the head if you want to funnel in or wrestle up. And you'll see, like, more so than focusing on grabbing the chin strap with these Anaconda chokes, I really focus on the secondary arm. Shout outs to my buddy Matt Scaff for really changing my game big time with this. But this secondary arm leaning to open up this elbow, to keep this elbow over the shoulder line, right? Instead of the arm going straight out from the shoulder, you want it up higher than that, almost pointing up towards the head. And that's going to be the big secret to making the Anaconda choke work. It's going to pin them in place. It's going to make the finish super clean, and it's just going to make a big difference. Again, just trying to keep the foot off the floor, kind of doing some footwork, trying to relax the weight super heavy on top to kind of melt. Going back to headquarters here. So there's a really good, if you're in the split squat position, there's a really good way if you want to attack over the head, but you know that maybe you want to attack on the other side, or you want to get some momentum to get the back of the head off the mat. If you start running your split squat back towards the headquarters right here, there's just a really natural turn in motion from the bottom player. It's going to help you roll over the top. And on this one, I kept the underhook during the roll instead of the overhook, and just used the legs to trap the arm after the fact. And again, you can see as soon as I roll over the top with the underhook and the legs come back, once they're on top of that arm, generally they're going to stay on top of that arm. It's not as important with the Anaconda to trap the legs as it is with like a Darce choke or a guillotine to trap the hips, or trap the legs. If you can keep, again, their elbow up over their shoulder, kind of pointing in the same direction as their head, they aren't going to be able to move. Um, they can maybe shift around a little bit, but they're not going to get out. If you allow this elbow to start traveling below the line of their shoulders, they're going to be able to get up very easily. So that's the most important thing with the Anaconda, is keeping that elbow lifted up above the shoulder line. Chris has a good Kimura right here. He's keeping good pressure. I'm trying to distribute weight through my arm. Maybe slide out the back door or roll through. I'm keeping the elbows in nice and tight. Again, I'm just going to be looking for any space behind the back of the head, any kind of wrestle in pressure. Leaning over the top, mostly focused with this, again, secondary arm. And so here, okay, I was actually trying to use a Darce to set up the Anaconda right there. Chris did a good job getting his back to the mat. One thing here, again, anytime you're going for like a Darce attack, even, I think it's very beneficial to, instead of leading with the primary arm, go ahead and get that secondary arm behind the head. Right, Gordon Ryan does this over back style attack a lot against the guard. And this is just going to help break the posture. And then from here, you can start to feed your primary arm into place after the fact. Chris had a good read on it, did a good job getting his back to the mat. I think I'm just going to take like north-south right here, kind of consolidate that top position, going in on this backside. Darce look. Again, he's keeping his back to the mat, so I'm going to roll through to expose the back of the neck. And that roll through, again, trying to focus more on Anaconda chokes here, but it's a good play anytime you're going for like a Darce and somebody starts putting their back to the mat. If you're unable to step over the body to like mount them, If your legs are more out above the head here, if you just roll through, right, you can't lock the choke here because the back's on the mat. But once you get the back of the head off the mat right there, there's a lot of room for your grip to attach and attack the darce. Chris is, yeah, getting his back to the mat again. I'm just taking that to get the top angle, re-attacking the Anaconda. And again, there's a lot of pressure right here. Two things. Firstly, mostly again, focusing on the secondary arm, not worrying so much about the chin strap arm. That's gonna find its way in place 9 out of 10 times. The secondary arm needs to be leaning against that elbow and bringing it down towards my hips and above his head. And even once the choke is in place here, not only are you bringing your elbows together, but you're bringing your elbows down towards your hips like you're doing a pull-up. That's going to help keep that shoulder rolled into the side of the neck, keep that arm above the head. I think just to show some transitions a little bit, I've already done a couple Anaconda finishes here. I think I'm going to try to chain it to a guillotine or a darce. So during the roll through, yeah, using that roll through to punch my hand through for that shoulder trap, high risk guillotine style. So as he goes towards the knees, I'm going to let go of the grip. And if you watch the right hand here, I'm going to swing my head across the shoulder line, punch that hand nice and high, and then you can just finish with one hand as long as you're monitoring the free arm. The Anaconda guillotine work really well together. Just trying to keep frames in place, trying to monitor a little bit, 2-on-1, off balance. Just got a good little front headlock on me there. I'm just kind of trying to play nice and tight and kind of ride this out. And then here, right, it's anytime somebody goes for a Kimura grip, if you pop that elbow, you can get your arm around the head and get a nice little darce attack. Rotating it through to the top, right? He's getting his trapped arm across my body, which is fantastic defense. If you try to stay at this angle on bottom and walk in, you can lose the position. So I'm just letting his momentum carry me back to the top, and I'm going to use that darce to switch off to the Anaconda. Again, leaning against that elbow. I tried to get a little too creative here. I tried to kind of roll him back to a darce again to show a trade-off sequence, but my hand is blocked by his armpit there, so I swing back and go back to the Anaconda. Again, really bringing my elbows down towards my hips. Just finish there. So I'm just, I think for the rest of the roll, just kind of keeping it a little bit playful. Neither one of us are going too crazy. I really wanted the saddle right there. Right, I really wanted to, on this leg entry, I was trying to get this bottom foot kicked through, but I brought his weight too far overhead. So I'm just riding it to the top, not focusing on leg locks too much for this roll. Relaxed pressure, trying to keep my head over that far shoulder. And just baiting that wrestle up. Get on that front headlock, trying to open that elbow. His posture felt pretty good right there. So switching sides, that's another important skill. Right here, have the right hand chin strap. I'm sorry, I had the left hand chin strap. So I had the left hand chin strap right there. And then I pummeled over to the right. And then again, trying to show a couple transitions and not just Anaconda, leaning heavy against this elbow. I think I'm going to pop back to the knees and switch to a darce from here. I think that it's easier to go from an Anaconda to a darce than it is to go from a darce to an Anaconda. So even when I attack darces at this point in my game, which is honestly not a ton right now, I prefer to go to the Anaconda or the guillotine first. I just think it's easier to transition off of those. Trying a little elbow push. I think he's going to do another back attack here. There is one cool little defensive principle that I want to show right here. If you watch my right hand, when Chris punches his right hand, his top hand across for the rear naked choke. Been really trying to iterate to students recently, like, don't pull down at the wrist, pull down at the knuckles. My hand is above the knuckle line here. I'm not just pulling down at the wrist. If I was, Chris could take his elbow and just punch it to my center line and still get his hand behind my shoulder really easily. But by pulling down at the hand, he's going to actually have to use his second hand here to punch my defensive hand off. And I strip it down before he's able to do that. So he's doing a good job not staying on my back. He's kind of transitioning to the mount. He's creeping that foot over the shoulder. It's kind of nice little reverse triangle arm lock in there as the round ends. So I hope that was helpful.